Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. I've been wanting to do this for a little while, and since 2020 has been such a crazy year to give us a lot of time to think, I managed to pull this one out. Spent a few hours on this list, no doubt. I hope all of you can hear me okay with the volume. So, this is my top 30 techno tracks of the 2010s. It was actually kind of, I think, a peak decade for techno, and you'll see with some of the list, it was pretty hard to narrow it down to 30. There's a lot more out there. There's probably a lot that I missed. Actually, there's probably a lot behind me too in vinyl. So a lot of these are digital, available digitally, but some of them were only vinyl releases as well. So without further ado, because it's probably going to be a long one, I'm going to jump into the list. I'm going to count backwards from 30 to 1, as you know. And I'm going to kick it off with my number 30, which is an awesome producer, Vopteen, aka Sean O'Sullivan. He did about three or four good releases in the decade just passed. And I'm going for his Lies 38 release, Vopteen. It's a 6-song EP, so that might qualify for an album in some quarters. I'm going with the track Ask the Boss by Vopteen for number 30. It's a slow, sludgy, heavy techno track, probably the slowest techno track you've ever heard in years. But it really sets the tone, and I think it'll set the tone for what's going to be a great top 30 list here of techno tracks. So number 29, I'm coming in with Traumer and a track called XAS. That's out on Arts, and that came out in 2015. So middle of the decade, Traumer had a number of great releases, of course. This one sounds like an updated version of Basic Channel, I think. It's some great dub techno. Traumer is, of course, from Paris. He's also known as Romain Renault. So many releases. I'm trying to keep this list to one release per artist, but you'll see I broke that rule a few times. But I can say right now that Traumer is probably this is the only track from Traumer in this list. So moving on up to 28 now, I got Rennie Wise, aka Andrew Shobury of Brighton, UK, goes by Rennie Wise, and the track Sling Jockey that came out on Mode Revolver in 2019. So that's a pretty recent one for my 2010s list. It's a great double groover, a bit minimal, but it's banging and it's fast, and it's my number 28. Number 27, I've got some more sort of on the heavier industrial techno side, Enrique, which is Manuel Enrique Alvarez, I think. Track called People Talking on his Please Shut the Door EP on Bank Records from New York. Bank, great little label that came out of New York City in the 2010s. Kind of, at first I thought a little bit similar to Lies, but not as extensive. A little bit more hard-hitting and focused, and not as many releases. So this one came out in 2016, but it's extremely hard industrial, distorted techno, bangs harder than Motorhead, I would say. Like a slow gabber. Not as fast as gabber, obviously, but not as slow as the Vopteen either. Number 26, I put Bo Wanzer, another one of my faves. It's a producer out of Chicago, known for doing some off-center, left-to-center techno. Headspace I picked from his Untitled album in 2015. I think he did 2 albums, just Bo Wanzer on his own. I wouldn't even say label, they're just sort of self-released. It's lo-fi, sublime. This is the one actually that's quite dreamy, ambient sounding on the album. I could have picked up any track on that album, though. There's a lot of cool stuff like Shitty Cough and those tracks. But Headspace is really stands out kind of in my mind as quite a neat little ambient track. Number 25, I'm going with the extremely hard and heavy Perk and Truss, Clap Acid. That's from the Spiker EP. I remember when that record came out. It's got that crazy face with a bunch of nails all over the face, clear vinyl. Perk from the UK, of course. Ali Wells. He's the owner of Perk Tracks and any sub labels. Truss is Tom Russell from London, and he's also in the Black Necks project from the 2010s. This one, Clap Acid, huge overdrive acid banger. 90s rave stabs are in there. It's a very 90s hard techno track. What more can you say? It'll do the trick. That could be a standout industrial techno track for the decade. This one came out in 2013, so Perk was way ahead of the curve. He was the curve basically for the industrial techno that came out in the decade. Just above him, I'm gonna put Truss on his own. So I don't know if that's qualifying as a separate sort of one track per artist, but the other one was Perk and Truss. This one just Truss, and on Perk's label, the track Brockfire. I got this. This is off the Perk Tracks compilation, actually, Slowly Exploding. Great compilation. If you haven't heard it, pick that up. It's I don't know if it's on vinyl, but it's definitely on CD. It's called Slowly Exploding. Came out in 2014, and there's quite a few good tracks on there. I think Drug Culture's on there too, and this track by Truss, Brockfire, on the Slowly Exploding compilation 2014. It's a great heavy mid-tempo banger with some acid flares going off, and even builds up to some good laser noises. So that's my 24. 23, Paula Temple with Gegen. Gegen, I'm not sure how you want to say it, but Gegen. That's on her label Noise Manifesto. It came out in 2014. It's full-on, non-stop, about to explode in your face industrial techno with some great rave sounds too. She co-runs, the Noise Manifesto label out of Netherlands. She's a Netherlands producer, and that one's a huge banger for festivals and clubs. I mean, 2010s were really all about huge parties, especially in Europe. I remember going to ADE and the warehouse parties and festivals. So we're going to see if that comes back after the COVID pandemic, but it was quite a decade. And like I said, this year's given us a lot of time to reflect on all that we had for techno. 22, so almost getting through the 20s here in my list. 22, I'm going to go with Conrad Van Orton and Not Today. It's a funky stomper. This guy's from Italy. He also is known as Andrea Zanchetta. And I don't know much more than that for that track, but that's my number 22. It's called Not Today by Conrad Van Orton. 21, I got UVB, a great producer. He's running Sebastian Michel, his name, from France, but I think he's probably living in Berlin now. Who isn't? And he is a founder of the Body Theory label. Great label. Recommended for dark, heavy, hard techno. I feel like I might have seen a Body Theory UVB performance at ADE just a couple of years ago before all this stuff happened. But I picked the track Lying in Your Face. It's from 2016. It's spicy industrial sounds, solid groove techno. Definitely check it out. UVB, Lying in Your Face, 2016. That's my number 21 pick of the decade. So moving into the teens now. Hope you're still with me. I got a lot more good stuff coming up. Blow On is who I'm going to round out the top 20 with. And I could have picked tons of stuff from Blow On, right? Like him and Randomer, loads of good releases that came out. I picked Vibe Decorum on RNS early in the decade. Probably the earliest track of the decade that's in my top 30 is this one from Blow On from 2011. So this one is just incredibly beat-driven techno, expertly sliced. He's had some good ones also on Clone and other labels. But this one is a bit sinister. It's a total jacker. And that's my number 20, Jamie Roberts, a.k.a. Blow On from the UK, now based in, you guessed it, Berlin. I just noticed I got my Perk Tracks t-shirt on today. So you've seen a lot of Perk already in the list, and maybe some more will be coming. Number 19, I'm going with an artist I don't know a lot about, but it's going by, he's a Greek artist. I'm a huge fan of a lot of Greek techno. Conductor instead of Conductor. A track called Robert Takvara. Robert Takvara. Robert Takvara. Let's try it 4 times, right? On the label Abstract Reality 2017 release. This is some brutal tribal techno. Does the business well with industrial sounds. And again, this is a Greek artist named Slidex, goes by Slidex. Had a couple of releases, I think, on Mondel, probably something on Modal Analysis, which is another fave label of mine, probably will show up in this list. In fact, my number 18 is also the same artist, so I didn't really vary this one a little that much. So 19 Conductor, 18 Conductor, and I picked one off Modal Analysis from 2014, track called Signal 2, the Soph remix. Huge fan of Soph as well, great artist, I think also from Greece. So Modal Analysis, I was just saying, they have that consistent sort of abstract minimalist covers. Pretty good experimental techno label. Sometimes it's hard industrial stuff. Sometimes it's more ambient noise. This track, Signal 2, is totally stripped down, minimal and distorted. It's got an eerie high pitch coming in at times. The groove goes on, but the glitches along the way. So I think it's kind of hard to describe. It's a pretty unique track. Definitely one to check out. So that's my number 18. Number 17, I'm going with the guy that was remixing 18, Soph, with Know the System. This track definitely stands out in my mind. It's from the Wolves EP, Wolf on the cover. A various artists EP on Code is Law, which I think is a French label. Came out in 2013, and Soph is one of the 4 artists on that EP. Know the System's a great one. It's got this weird spiraling kind of groove, synth lines, hypnotic and hard at the same time. Definitely a standout track from that EP. It's got that great vocal sample repeating the system. So, and Soph is a producer from Athens, Greece. So that's number 17. Number 16 for me is Colin Strange, Colin with 2 L's. If you're looking it up on Spotify, I'm going with the track Private Lives on Lies. What can I say? Lies has been a favorite label of the decade by far, and it's still going. I'm still discovering newer releases lately on Lies that I'm really digging as much as some of the earlier releases. So props to Ron Morelli for keeping that thing going. This one is fairly recent for the Lies label. Came out 2017. It's a monster acid track, hard distorted beat, straight out of the 90s. This track could sound like it was on Drop Bass Network, but maybe a little slower. But this Colin Strange guy, definitely keep him in mind. He's based in Seattle, but originally from New York. Private Lives by Colin Strange, 16. Number 15, I went with something a little bit more experimental in the techno list, just to break up the flow and see where we're going, because we may be far removed from the dance floor these days. It's another Lies pick. So my number 15 is LoJack, and a track called QB Untitled 1. This is from the Lies album, Garifuna Variations 2014. It's a great experimental track, fuzzy, distorted tribal techno, slow groove. This LoJack guy is from Honduras, Philip Hallis, but based in Paris now. And he co-runs a really cool tape label called Editions Gravas. And that label put out the Saudi album originally, and which Lies, I guess, then later reissued on vinyl. So a bit of a connection between the two labels. LoJack, definitely pick it up. Something interesting to listen to. On the lower fi scale, experimental techno, and QB Entitled 1 is my pick for number 15. So we're about halfway here. I hope everybody's doing okay. I know it's slow and long going, but you got to give these tracks some definite respect. There's a lot out there, and I sifted through tons and tons of stuff. Tried to pick a bit of variety, not just dance floor bangers, but interesting stuff too on that came out techno-wise in the decade of 2010s, and 14 more to go. So number 14, I've got Amato Y Mariana. So this is the two artists, Amato and Mariana. A track called Queres Bailar. I'm not great at, I think, Spanish. It's off the City Tracks compilation EP, Volume 3. City Tracks, amazing. What is it? A sub-label of Mannequin, I think. Amazing sub-label of synth, industrial EBM sounding stuff. Volume 3, get all the volumes. They're all good. They're a little pricey, I find, for an EP, but they're totally, totally worth it. Volume 3 came out in 2018, so it's pretty recent. And this track by Amato and Y Mariana, is a huge synth techno jam. So surprise, surprise. Mariana Saladena and Michael Amato, which is AKA The Hacker. So people from the 2000s will remember The Hacker quite well, as he recorded a lot of stuff with Miss Kitten and The Hacker, big on the electro house scene at the time. But this one really dials in a great synth EBM industrial jam. I quite dig it. So that's on City Tracks, and that's my number 14. Number 13, I'm going with Endlek, who's a very well-known name in the techno circles, as a lot of these guys are. And also from Greece. So from Thessaloniki, Teslos Androitis. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, but goes by Endlek. And I picked the track Classic Cut on Analog Various, the Analog label out of Greece. It's a Various EP from 2018. So multiple producers, but this one, wow, comes on like a good thrash metal track. Great banger. There was tons of Endlek stuff I could have chose, and I'm thinking I could do a top 10 Endlek songs, so I may do that. There's a few artists in here that I might end up doing like a top 10 of just them or top 10 of the label, just because it was so hard to choose this top 30. And maybe after I do those top 10s, I'm going to want to revisit this top 30, but here it is. Best I could do in the short notice. But it's something I've been percolating for a while. This top 30 techno of the 2010s. So where was I? 13, Endlek, Classic Cut on Analog. Number 12, I'm going to go with Tensol, another well-known name with Merenga. This one's on Soma, 2018. Soma, like a long-standing techno label from the 90s from Scotland. So one of the more long-standing or previously known labels. And Tensol doing a really funky, pulsating, nice sidechain techno vibe. Spanish techno is huge in the decade, probably continuing on. Labels like Semantica and Polé Group, and Tensol's right in there. He's Hector Sandoval from Spain, and I picked his track Merenga. So check that out for number 12. And number 11, finishing off the teens, I'm going to go with a sub-label release from Lies. Surprise, surprise. One of my favorite labels of the decade, Russian Torrent Versions. Who doesn't love that label? So that was a cool sub-label of Lies. Kind of seems to have petered out, I think, by 2016. So they had a good run, maybe 20 releases or less. Known for the communist symbol on the jacket, and not a lot more info. I picked for my number 11 Pulpo, which is actually a duo, and I picked Untitled 1, so that's not really a great title to this pick, but definitely check out the Pulpo EP on Russian Torrent Versions, CCCP 16. Came out in 2015, and I think it's a vinyl only, so you may not be able to find that digitally online, but you find it on YouTube. It's a good techno jacker, mid-tempo, good groove, lo-fi. And Pulpo is Max Ravitz, aka Patricia. Recorded a great album, cassette release on Opal Tapes. And Nick Dawson, who also produces a lot under the name Bookworms. So you got Bookworms and Patricia combined as Pulpo for my number 11 on Russian Torrent Versions. So finally we've come to the moment of the top 10. So again, it's hard to say that this is the 10 above the other 20. I tried my best, but I probably could change these up order-wise based on like next week. I could be, some of these could fall a little lower, some could go a little higher. So it's hard to say. And bearing in mind, this is a whole decade of techno I'm looking at. All these tracks I own, a lot of them on vinyl. Probably, I'm going to guess 50% or more on vinyl, but some just digitally as well. I didn't go into my cassettes. I didn't get down into that level. I think I'll probably save a top 10 or 20 cassettes of the year, of the decade, of the year. We'll see where it goes. But for the purpose of this video, top 30 techno tracks, I am going to get into the top 10 now of the 2010s. So number 10, I have I/Y. Great artist duo from Berlin, of course. They've been active since 2011. They are Irakli and Yak are the two, so the I and the Y. And I picked the track Nara on Weekend Circuit, a compilation from Weekend Circuit called Ground Fault Interrupt Volume 2. There's a lot of good compilations that came out in the decade, and Weekend Circuit is definitely a cool label to check out. This one is dark and brooding and rhythmic techno with a cool synth wave line as well. So that's my pick for number 10, I/Y Nara. Number 9, I went with a guy that you're going to see a little bit more, actually, my top 10, Cleric. Wow, here's a guy that, or a producer that I'm probably going to make a top 10 Cleric tracks for sure. Because there were so many to pick from. So many that I played a lot. And anyway, for 9, I went with Formation on his own label, Clergy, from 2016. It's huge, a gigantic sidechain action, pumping this techno directly into your veins. I mean, it's hard to shake this thing off. Like I said, I could, and I will do probably a top 10 Cleric songs soon. But for number 9, I picked Cleric's Formation on Clergy. Definitely check that out. That's the vibration's gonna go wild if you crank that one up. Number 8, I got Backyard Aliens and Burial Grounds. That's a release from 2016. This is a great use of industrial sounds in their techno and some nice warm fuzz as well. So again, if you like it a little bit more on the distorted side, but definitely a banger. Number 7, I chose Ansem and Ocean. So Ansem does a lot of, I think he's from the UK, does a lot of stuff with Perk, on Perk tracks as well. This is coming out on the Slam label. Number 5, in fact. 2017, I picked the track Butch. So Ansem and Ocean, Butch on Slam. It's absolutely punishing industrial techno. And Ansem is Kieran Whitfield, for those wanting to know. Number 6, I put Drug Culture, another one of my favorite producers from Netherlands. I Don't Want to Die in James Franco's House. This is a slow one. A lot of Drug Culture stuff is slower groove, but heavy techno. This guy really prides himself in doing this combination of sort of techno, acid, EBM, post-punk style, he call it. This is another one from that Perk Tracks compilation, Slowly Exploding, which I have on CD as well, that came out in 2014. So it's heavy pounding acid from Drug Culture, as he does best. And maybe Drug Culture is another artist I could do a top 10. There's quite a few good joints from him, very standout tracks. Vincent Corman is his name. Heavy music from Drug Culture. That's my number 6. Number 5 will not surprise you because I'm back to Cleric again, and this is a total massive hit for the decade for me. Something I played many times. Equinox on Arts from 2016. So from 2016 to 2020, 4 years of playing this one multiple times. It's the one that has the classical strings in it, techno jam over top of techno. It's not always the easiest one to mix, by the way, just because that riff sort of never seems to end, and it can get quite repetitive too. So you've been warned. If you're going to use this one, take some time and be a little cautious. It's a deep hook. So Cleric Equinox on Arts 2016 is my number 5. Number 4, I'm going to go with Susing and 1976, and Su Sing would be definitely one of my top artists of the decade. I have to say I was a little disappointed when I saw him DJ. It wasn't as good as the production wise, but that happens often with producers, etc. I saw him at ADE, I think. And I could have picked a few different Su Sing tracks and EPs, but I went with kind of where it all began for me with Su Sing. Was the first EP I think that he put out ever. It was first one on Lies in 2015, and the EP, A Name Out of Place, Part 1, and the track 1976. This is the one, of course, everybody knows it. It's using that great use of the sample from Network, the movie, with Ned Beatty, talking about conspiracy theories and the media. And this is a movie that came out like in the 1970s, right? So it's way ahead of its time, or it was right on its time, I guess. And times haven't changed. So the track itself is timeless as well. It's a perfect jam. Hard flanged techno beats, just pummeling and banging. And Su Sing is born in Malaysia, but he's based in Shanghai and Taipei, based on the Discogs info that I found. And like I said, had a few more EPs after this. They've all been great. Definitely pick it up. Worth picking up. And here's another group at my number 3 that takes the cake for the decade. Schweffelgelb. I guess we're going to call them Schweffelgelb. From Germany, from Berlin. Balancier Dyke. It's been reissued digitally on Nplex. Seems like their kind of own private label, but it came with that green album cover. I think probably on their own label as well. But Schweffelgelb, Balancier Dyke, and I put that at my number 3. It's synthy EBM style techno, very industrial, and you can't go wrong with these guys. They deserve their own top 10. All these artists probably in my top 10 deserve their own top 10 on their own. Getting close to the end, finally in a 30-minute video here, guys. Sorry about this. Number 2, I'm going to go with Cleric and Kimmel combined. So the two producers have come together to give us an amazing track called Empty Shells on Clergy, on Cleric's own label, 2019 Stomper. So very recent, almost topping the whole chart. It's an absolute stomper, a sick hypnotic groove, one of the most sinister, devastating, funky side chains in techno. Again, Cleric just nailing the side chain action, pulsating. This is Cleric. Jordan Hodgetts of Manchester, and Kimmel is from Toulouse, France, and that's my number 2 pick. And to get to number 1, top 10 techno, top 30 techno tracks of the decade, 2010s, I'm going to go with someone from way down south, other end of the world from here in Canada. We're going to go all the way to New Zealand for the Keepsakes, which I think is just one guy, right? Yeah, it's one guy, James Barrett of New Zealand, who's now based in Berlin, producing as the Keepsakes. I'm going with Gumming, and it's on Green Fetish, 2014 release. Green Fetish, a Melbourne, Australia label. And I think it's pretty special because I don't think I would have ever expected at the beginning of the decade to be picking an Australian label, New Zealand techno artist as my number 1 pick of the whole decade or even of a year, just because we're not used to getting a lot of techno out of that region, other than experimental old stuff from Severed Heads, that kind of thing. But I'm not, Australia doesn't usually register on the techno radar the way Germany, UK, even US do. But the Keepsakes, this track is unstoppable. And there's a couple of good ones actually from this artist. But I picked Gumming. It's punishingly hard techno. It's got a metallic synth line. It's the sound of an endless factory on the verge of collapse. I mean, it's pretty killer. And this guy, James Barrett, he has releases as Keepsakes on Mord, Perk, Slam, and of course this one in Green Fetish. And I think it also came on green vinyl, as I recall. So I have this one in vinyl as well as digital. Definitely pick it up. It's my number 1 pick for the whole decade, and it's been one heck of a journey. So I hope you guys were able to stick with it. No music playing in the background because, as you know, it'll get flagged and torn down. But that being said, you should all check out a lot of these tracks. And I think I'll put down below a link, maybe a Spotify link to some of these tracks. Some of them won't be on Spotify because they're vinyl only. And of course, you should support their Bandcamp and their vinyl releases. And if they ever get to play a gig again, you should support that too. It's hard to figure out how to support an artist these days because Spotify doesn't give any money really to artists other than exposure. But these artists do not need the added Spotify exposure, I think, because I'm looking through the list. They are all quite well known and doing very well on their own as in terms of getting their names out in the techno circuit, the techno circle. Just to recap what we went through here with 30, we had Voptine, Traumer, Rennie Wise, Enrique, Bo Wanzer, Perk and Trust on Himself, Paula Temple, Conrad Van Orton, UVB, Blow On, Conductor, with a Soft remix, Soft, Colin Strange on Lies, LoJack, Amato Y Mariana, Endlick, Tencel, Pulpo, I/Y, Cleric, Backyard Aliens, Ansem, Ocean, Drug Culture, Cleric again, Susing, Schweffelgelb, Cleric and Camille, and Keepsakes at the top. Wow, what a decade of techno. Let's see what the next decade brings us. I know I'm a little late on my decade of 2010s. It's now almost 2021, but I had the whole year really to think about it all, right? And since we couldn't party or go out to any of these gigs, could kind of look back and say what were the really killer tracks that came out. I think for next steps, I want to do a video probably of top 10 EPs, albums of the decade. And some of these artists, some of these tracks may be finding their way in that list as well. And like I said during the video, there's a couple artists I'd like to do a top 10 just on their own. So, but I don't want to take any more time. Thanks a lot, everybody, for watching, and hit the like and click subscribe if you dug this video, and also post some of your favorite tracks of the decade of 2010s, techno or otherwise. So thanks, everybody, and have a great day.